What's up, Blue and Silver Nation? What a night in Detroit. What we saw on that field wasn't just a win. It was a warning shot to the entire NFL. A game filled with heart, strategy, and that fire only the Lions bring when Ford Field is rocking. But before we dive into this epic breakdown, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment below. What impressed you the most in this game? The dominant defense, the explosive offense, or the pure team spirit that pulled it all together? I want to hear from the pride. Today we're talking about resilience, brilliant adjustments, and players who silenced every critic when the team needed them most. Detroit didn't just win, they proved something real is being built here. So sit back because this video is one you don't want to miss. Let's get into it. Go Lions! After what we witnessed on Monday Night Football, there's no denying it. The Detroit Lions absolutely dominated. This wasn't just a win, it was a statement. The kind of performance that makes every fan believe that something truly special is happening in Detroit. Let's talk about it. This game had everything: grit, adjustments, and some unexpected heroes who stepped up when it mattered most. And it all starts with one man, Calvin Shepard. When Aaron Glenn left for the Jets, many were concerned about how this defense would respond. But Calvin Shepard has completely erased those doubts. What we saw against Tampa Bay wasn't luck. It was a masterclass in coaching. Shepard didn't just stick to a rigid system. He adjusted. He adapted his game plan to shut down one of the most explosive offenses in the league. Remember, the Buccaneers came into this game as one of the top-ranked teams in the power rankings, and people couldn't stop talking about how unstoppable their offense was. But then the Lions' defense, led by Shepard and made up of backup players in the secondary, held them to just 9 points. 9. Against Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, and that entire explosive Buccaneers offense. That's not a fluke. That's a statement. And while the defense was fierce, the MVP of the night was obvious: Jahmyr Gibbs. What he did out there was simply electric. Fans have been waiting to see him unleashed, and he didn't just deliver, he exploded. With his elite speed, quick cuts, and ability to find daylight even in the smallest gaps, Gibbs looked like the 2025 version of Chris Johnson. Every time he touched the ball, it felt like something big was about to happen. Against a defense as tough as Tampa Bay's, especially with Vita Vea clogging the middle, Gibbs still managed to rack up massive all-purpose yards. He wasn't just fast, he was relentless, breaking tackles, cutting inside, and keeping drives alive when it mattered most. This is the kind of running that wins games deep in December, in the playoffs, no matter where you play. Indoors, outdoors, or even in a storm. That's what championship football looks like. Now, not everything was smooth on offense, and fans made that clear during the game.
The criticism toward offensive coordinator Morton's play calling was loud. Too much dink and dunk, people said. But here's the truth. It wasn't about being conservative, it was about surviving. The offensive line was struggling, and Jared Goff barely had time to breathe in the pocket. Going deep just wasn't an option. Every time he dropped back, pressure was in his face within seconds. The short passes weren't a sign of weakness. They were the only way to keep the chains moving without risking disaster. Morton made the right call. When you can't protect long enough for 7-step drops, you adapt. You use timing routes, checkdowns, and let your playmakers, guys like Gibbs and St. Brown, do their thing after the catch. And speaking of playmakers, the noise about getting Jameson Williams more touches? Let's slow down a bit. Even if he's not getting 10 targets a game, his impact is there. Defenses have to respect his speed, which means he's constantly drawing double coverage. That opens the field for everyone else, especially Amon-Ra St. Brown and Gibbs. You can't feed everyone the ball every game, but you can play smart, team-first football. That's what Detroit did. This wasn't about stats or highlight reels. It was about winning, and winning smart. Now, let's talk about what had every fan in Ford Field fired up: the refs. You heard the chants. Refs, you suck. It echoed through the stadium like thunder. And honestly, they weren't wrong. The officiating was brutal. Missed calls, inconsistent flags, unnecessary huddles. It was a mess. Both teams got burned by bad calls, but the overall impact slowed the rhythm of the game and frustrated everyone watching. From the uncalled face mask to the questionable tripping penalty, it felt like every few plays the refs were inserting themselves into the story. Even in other games, like the Seattle matchup, the officiating across the league has been a disaster. The NFL needs to fix this. Full-time officials, real accountability, and consistency, that's what fans deserve. Baker Mayfield even called them out after the game, and you know what? He's right. Someone needs to say it. But back to the Lions, because this is where it gets even more exciting. Detroit sits at 5-2 heading into the bye week, and the timing couldn't be better. The defense just put on a clinic. The offense is finding its rhythm, and reinforcements are on the way. Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, Tyrion Arnold, DJ Reed, Marcus Davenport, Josh Paschal, and Malcolm Rodriguez, all expected to return after the bye. That's a massive injection of talent back into a unit that's already performing at a high level. Even Taylor Decker, who's been fighting through a shoulder issue, will finally get the rest he needs. Imagine this team fully healthy, with the energy they're playing with right now. The schedule ahead looks promising too. The Vikings, Commanders, Eagles, Giants, Packers, Cowboys, Rams, Steelers, and Bears, all still to come. And the truth is, most of those teams are beatable. Some of them, very beatable. The NFC is stacked, but the Lions have already proven they can hang with and beat the best. Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, all high-level opponents, all challenged and handled. Right now, the Lions sit just behind Green Bay in the NFC standings. But if the Packers slip, Detroit jumps right into that number 1 seed conversation. And if that happens, if Detroit can secure that top spot, they're not just making the playoffs. They're making a run, because if they earn that number 1 seed, it'll mean they've beaten nearly every contender in the NFC. That's the kind of resume you take into a Super Bowl. The energy in Detroit feels different this year. The confidence is real, the coaching sharper, and the roster deeper. And when you combine all of that with the heart and grit this team plays with, it's hard not to believe something special is brewing. Because after what we've seen so far, it's not just about hoping anymore, it's about believing. The Detroit Lions are no longer the team that surprises opponents, they're the team that defines the fight. And what's wild is how much they've done it while still not being completely healthy. Think about that. Even with backups starting in the secondary, with Taylor Decker banged up, with rotations constantly shifting on defense, this team hasn't just survived, they've dominated. That's a credit to coaching, discipline, and a locker room that's all in. Let's talk about what's next, because this bye week isn't just a breather, it's a launching pad. Once players like Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, and Marcus Davenport return, this defense becomes something entirely different. We've already seen how aggressive Shepard's system can be with second-string players. Imagine adding Branch's instincts and Joseph's range back into the mix. Suddenly, quarterbacks can't throw over the middle with confidence. Running backs won't find open gaps. This isn't just a good defense anymore. It becomes one of the most complete units in the league. And that's not even mentioning how the front seven is evolving. Aiden Hutchinson continues to be a disruptive force, constantly drawing double teams. And now with the possibility of a trade for another pass rusher on the horizon, things could get scary for opposing offenses. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell know this window is wide open, and there's a growing sense that the front office won't hesitate to make a move to push this team over the top. Detroit's not looking for next year anymore, they're going for it now. Offensively, there's still room to grow, and that's what makes this team so dangerous. The run game has become the heartbeat of the offense, but when Jared Goff gets time, this unit can still air it out with the best of them. Amon-Ra St. Brown continues to be the most reliable weapon on third downs, and Gibbs gives this team the kind of explosiveness they've lacked in years past. Add in Sam Laporta's consistency and Jameson Williams' deep threat potential, and you're looking at an offense that can hit you from every angle once the line settles. What's even more impressive is how this team's mentality has changed. In years past, the Lions might have folded after a few early setbacks or injuries. But this group, they don't panic, they adapt. That's a reflection of Dan Campbell's leadership, a culture built on grit, trust, and accountability. You can see it in the way they celebrate every sack, every tackle, every touchdown. There's a genuine belief that no matter what happens, they'll find a way to win. And that belief is contagious. You can feel it in the locker room, you can feel it in Ford Field, and you can feel it across the entire fan base. Now, let's take a look at the bigger picture. The NFC is absolutely loaded this year. Green Bay, San Francisco, the Rams, the Seahawks, all sitting at 5-2. It's a logjam at the top, and every single game matters. That tie from earlier in the season may complicate things a bit, but Detroit's path is still clear. Keep winning, because if the Lions finish strong and somehow secure the number 1 seed, Ford Field could become the roadblock every NFC team dreads. Home field advantage in Detroit? That place would be a nightmare for opponents. And honestly, this might just be the most complete Lions team we've seen in decades. The balance is there, an offense that can grind down opponents and a defense that can take over games. The chemistry between players, the trust in the coaching staff, and the steady hand of Goff under center, it's all coming together at exactly the right time. But beyond the X's and O's, there's something intangible happening here. This city has waited a long time for a team like this, a team that reflects Detroit itself, tough, resilient, and unbreakable. You can feel it in the fans, you can hear it in the crowd chants, and you can see it in the players' eyes. Every yard, every stop, every touchdown feels earned, and that's why this team means so much. And you know what? If the Lions do make that big trade, if they add one more key piece before the deadline, a pass rusher, maybe a rotational defender, that could be the final spark that pushes them straight into a Super Bowl run. It's bold, sure, but it's not unrealistic anymore. This isn't the old Detroit Lions. This is a team built to compete with anyone, anywhere, under any conditions. So as we head into the bye, Lions fans, take a deep breath. Enjoy it, because these moments, sitting at 5-2, watching a team that refuses to back down, they don't come around often. And something tells me this is only the beginning. The second half of the season is going to define who this team really is. Do you think the Lions should make that aggressive move at the deadline to go all in, or should they trust the roster they have right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're part of this Lions family, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and stay tuned because the next chapter in this story might just be the biggest one yet. Because here's the thing, this isn't just a good story anymore, it's starting to feel like destiny. Every season, there's that one team that catches fire at the right time, where all the preparation, all the heartbreak, and all the near misses finally start paying off. And right now, that's Detroit. You can sense it in the way the players talk, and how the coaches carry themselves, and how the fans rally behind every snap. There's belief, not blind hope, belief that this team is capable of taking it all the way. And what's so fascinating is that it's not built on flashy egos or one-man heroics. It's built on unity. Everyone knows their role. You've got veterans like Goff keeping the offense steady, young stars like Gibbs and St. Brown injecting energy and creativity, and leaders on defense who are setting the tone with every hit and every huddle. That's the DNA of a championship-caliber roster.